So today I'm talking to Clara Cicely, who plays bass in not one but two punk bands. Is that right? Are you still in two? Or?
Oh, I've joined another band now.
Okay. So plays bass in three punk bands. Okay. We met for the first time in Lime Street Station. It was tea time on a summer's day last year. You looked super cool, really lovely, super stylish, and I wanted to take some photographs, but you were talking on your phone. As soon as you finished the call, I jumped in and said hello, and you said yes to some pictures, but I had to do it while you made another urgent call. Do you remember this?
I do remember it.
Yeah. I found out later that you were travelling to do a gig at Kendal Calling.
Yeah.
And you'd lost your drummer. Mm-hmm. And it struck me at the time that losing your drummer on the eve of an important big gig was, well, a bit careless really, a bit reckless, but...
live with the thrill.
Live with the thrill. Since then, we've done two lovely photo sessions, and I'll include some pics at the end of the film from them, because they're really nice. But now the focus is on your music. And question number one, what's a nice girl like you doing in a punk band?
Got some rage inside me. I don't know. I just love that kind of music. I think it's a great way to express how you're feeling. And
angry.
I don't think it's that angry.
Yeah.
It's a little bit angry, but in a fun way.
Yeah. One of the sort of interesting things, I've photographed lots of punks on the street, and rather disappointingly, they're all really nice. No swearing, snarling, spitting, none of the stuff that you would associate with punk.
I agree with that, because I know a lot of punks through like playing with different bands, and they are generally the nicest people you ever meet. So it is kind of funny the image that they put out to people, like compared to how they actually are as people. They're very like welcoming, and like will speak to anyone. So, but I guess that's part of what they're fighting against. Is
I wonder if it was like that back in the day.
I don't think so. Not what I've heard anyway.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? Okay, so what was your introduction to music?
Well, my parents are big music fans, so kind of just growing up, it was always on in the house. I didn't really have that much of a great music taste. I just kind of listened to whatever until I was like 13, and my dad bought me a CD. It was a Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which is an amazing album.
Right.
He bought me that and was like, listen to this, you'll love it. And I put it on and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this is
what
nothing.
Genre would you describe that?
It's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It's like heavy rock. And I was listening to like, I don't know, Katy Perry at the time. So I listened to it, I was like, why is my dad giving me this? Like, why did he think I'd like it? And then I listened to it again, and it just like blew my mind. And from then I was like, that's when I really got into music at that point, because I'd never really heard anything like that before.
So when he gave you that album, had he seen something? Was he expecting something? Was he anticipating that you were ready for it?
It was an intervention, to be honest. I think he was probably sick of listening to whatever I was playing in my room, like just pop music, and he was like, no, not having this.
Yeah.
And he just, took it upon himself.
Have a bit of quality.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right, so just say the name of that band and the album again.
It's the Smashing Pumpkins,
right.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
And when are we talking about? What sort of year?
Oh, I don't know what year the album was from.
When did your dad give it to you?
I was like 13, so it would have been... Oh, got some maths.
Just leave it. It's
maybe
10 years ago or something?
More than that.
More than that, okay.
About 14 years ago.
Right, okay. So that was the introduction, but that was listening. So in terms of actually picking up an instrument, how did that evolve?
Well, first instrument was recorder in school.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd class that as my start of my musical journey, but I played the flute in school as well for years, but that was kind of its own thing. I started playing guitar when I was 15, and I got lessons in school. Played that for a few years. Tried to start a band in school, but it didn't really work because I didn't know anyone who had the same music taste as me.
It's probably a bit niche given the album that your dad gave you.
Well, the band that we started, which lasted about 2 weeks, we were all totally different. It was like heavy metal, there was like punk in there, and I was just, it was never going to work.
Never going to work.
So I stopped playing for quite a few years after that. I just kind of gave up. And then I met Esme, who is the singer in Piscatty, one of the bands I'm in. And one day Esme was just like, do you want to start a band? I'm bored, let's do it. And I was like, yeah. So I picked up my guitar again years later and just kind of retaught myself how to play it. Played guitar in that band for about 2 years. Then I moved away, left the band, lived in London for a year, which was awful. Missed it too much, so I came back.
Yeah.
And when I came back, the band had a new guitarist, but they needed a bassist, so I was like, guess it's time to learn bass.
Yeah.
And as soon as I picked it up, I was like, this is for me.
you.
And it's just the best instrument I've ever played. I love it.
Right. Let's go back to Esme, because I just want to say that I photographed Esme about 4 years ago. Twice, actually. I bumped into her twice. Second time she was wearing a beret, and she was in the book I did about people who wear berets. And everybody who wears a beret, pretty much is an artist of one description. So that old beret cliche,
it's a classic.
It's totally valid, almost 95% anyway.
Yeah.
But when I told her about the project, she actually sent me a photograph of her cat also wearing a beret.
Yeah.
So I feel connected to the band, which is good. Do you do anything else creative?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite a creative person. I studied fashion design at university, so that was one of the things. Although I haven't done that in a while, I'm always like trying new things. My current hobby, that's quite new, is pottery. So that's something that I'm doing at the moment. Just making little pots, which is fun. And yeah, but mainly music right now, and also just writing. I write poetry as well, but it kind of ends up as lyrics, so it's kind of intertwined.
Do I remember you saying that you dabble in sort of creative things and then move on to...
I do, yeah. I think I like to just try a lot of things, and then I might do something for a few weeks and then get bored of it and move on. Some things I stick with, like music. But yeah, I mean, mainly that was in lockdown, when there was nothing to do.
Yeah.
So I was just trying
to stay sane.
I did a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Short-lived hobbies. Yeah.
List them. Go on.
I think the first one I did was candle making.
Yeah.
That seemed to be a big one. Did some crochet as well. Did a bit of knitting. Macrame. What else did I do?
Did you buy a bike?
I didn't.
Right, okay. And did you make banoffee pie?
I didn't make banoffee pie. Was that a thing that everyone was doing?
That was a big thing. Lockdown.
I'm not a great baker.
Yeah.
I like cooking, but I'm not. Whenever I've tried to make like cakes or anything, it just doesn't end well. So no, didn't even try that one.
Right. Buy a bike. Buy a dog, usually a cockapoo, and make banoffee pie. That was the three.
Sounds like quite a nice life, doesn't it?
That was the holy trinity of COVID, that. Okay, right. Next question then is, and you've covered it a little bit, but why punk? So you said it's a way of a form of expression for you, but anything else that you would want to add about punk? It's just like a genre of music that kind of speaks to me, and
makes me feel like. So listening to like other music for a while, it's like, you know, I like a lot of music, I like all kinds of music, but when I first heard punk, and mainly because the punk music that I heard was like made by women, I was like, oh, this is interesting, this is something different, this is something that is speaking to me and making me want to make it too. So I think that's the reason why I kind of got into it.
Going on to the bass then, so you said you picked up the bass really because there was already a guitarist in the band.
Yeah.
And I think there's something dead interesting going on with women and playing bass, because back in the day, I suppose in the 70s, there was Susie Quattro, and she was the only female bass player that anyone had ever come across. Now, there may have been others, but she'd got the profile. And then there's the other, the bass player in David Bowie's band.
Yes, Gail.
Dorsey.
Yeah.
She's obviously very hot as a player, because you don't get to play with David Bowie as if you're not, but very cool. So they're the two famous ones. But I've spoken to a few people, I've photographed a few people, and bear in mind that most of the people I photograph are artists, and a lot of them are musicians. Oh, what do you play? Bass. So it's a bit of a modern day phenomenon. So is there a reason for that, do you think? Or?
I don't really know. I've noticed it as well, particularly like female bassists. But I think the music scene's just getting better in the terms of like there is a lot more women playing music than, I mean, in a city like this anyway. No, they obviously existed. But yeah, there's just a lot more people that are giving it a go. I don't really know where it's come from.
Something's happened, because it wasn't happening, and now it is happening.
Yeah.
So something sort of changed it, and just interesting. Next, I want to move on to the mechanics of being in a band, just so that people watching, they'll think, I wonder what it's like being in a band.
Yeah.
So, I have a few questions. What's the commitment then? How much time are you putting into being in a band? If now's a little bit different normally?
Yeah, a lot. It's a lot of time, also a lot of money.
Yeah.
People don't realise that, which is kind of why you have to love it, because you spend so much money just to be able to make music that might not make you any money back.
Yeah. That's one of the questions I'll come on to.
Okay. So we try and practice at least once a week, you know, when we're like practicing like steadily, and we kind of go through phases. Like we'll have a few months where it's just like gigs, like if not every week, every other week, or we'll do a little tour. So we are quite busy. So yeah, it takes a lot of time. I'm tired all the time. But I love it. So
good. Right, okay, so that's the commitment. Where does the music come from? Who if you like, who writes it, develops it?
Well, I think in Piscatty we all have our own input, which is really nice. It feels like a very like collaborative project. Some of the songs I have written just on a guitar, and I've written the lyrics for it, and then I've brought it to the band and they've made it sound totally different and made it into an actual song, which it wouldn't have been without them. And the same with the other members as well. Like we've all brought stuff that wouldn't exist without each other, and I think all of us have written bits of lyrics, so we're not like strict on who does what, which is quite nice, because just make stuff and then work together on it. So we all feel like we've had an input into the song, which is a nice feeling.
Okay, and from the sort of creative point of view, for your own writing, where does the inspiration come from? What sort of, if you like, turns you on to writing something?
Usually when I'm sad. Unfortunately. I can't really sit down and be like, I'm going to write a song today. It doesn't really work like that for me. I have to get the urge to do it. which usually comes when I'm frustrated or upset about something, or sometimes it's if I'm really happy, I write a song as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to be feeling something that makes me want to do it, otherwise I'm just staring at a page. You can't force it.
So Joni Mitchell wrote something fairly recently that you never run out of inspiration if you focus on things that you really care about, which is, I thought that was powerful stuff.
Yeah,
and,
she's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your own particular. So when you're writing, are you in a room on your own? Are you writing collaboratively with the band, or how does it work?
Usually, when we write together, someone will come to the room with an idea already. So if I'm writing, I'll just be in my bedroom, just writing something, and I might just write a verse, or I might just write a chorus, and then we all kind of work on it together here. So I don't think we've ever really just been like, let's write a song right now with nothing to start on. Someone always has an idea that they've been messing around with. So.
Yeah. So when you're writing in your bedroom, is that in a arty book, or is it on a computer, or?
Do you know what? I wish it was. I wish I was a sketchbook person. I'm not. I feel when you write something, I'm trying to learn to do that, because the reason I do it on my phone. You know, if I'm writing lyrics, I just in my notes app, I just type stuff out, because I can change it. And maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe I shouldn't be able to change it so easily. But yeah, I do write on my phone. Just, I find it easier to look at it and be able to like move lines around, and because I'd just be scribbling everywhere.
Yeah, just on the sort of the journal thing, I'd love to do one. And when you see people that are doing it, it looks fab. Yeah. I don't. I do a lot of writing, and I write on my phone as well. You know, posts and sort of thoughts and whatever. Next question. How do you start gigging and developing a following?
Can't remember how we got our first gig. I mean, we did our first gig in 2018. It's like 5 years ago now. I think we just asked around. We'd been writing songs for like over a year, and we were like, okay, we've got enough for a very short set. I think our first gig was, we played for like 20 minutes and then got off. I think if you don't know anyone in the industry, it's quite hard. Luckily in Liverpool, pretty much everyone you meet is in a band or knows someone in a band. So if you just ask around, someone will be able to give you the name of someone who can put a gig on. I think we just asked the venue. It was in Sound. I don't know if you know. I don't know Sound. Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but it's a great venue. Just
closed it.
Basement. Yeah, we closed it. It closed the next day. Just ask around, and then once you've done your first gig, it's kind of easier from there, because people will see you. If someone watches you play, they will then be like, oh, I put gigs on too. Do you want to play this gig? And then it just kind of goes from there, and then people start to hear the name and they'll get in touch with you instead of the other way around.
So when you're just on the point of gigging, is there a confidence turn there where you're not ready, and then we are ready?
Oh, we were very much felt like we were not ready on the day of the gig.
Right.
And I think you only
What about the day before the gig? Do you feel okay?
It's all a blur, to be honest.
Right, okay.
I have never been so nervous in my life the day of our first gig, but it was also probably the best feeling I've ever had. And as soon as I got off stage, I was like,
This is me.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
As soon as you get up there, it's like, you forget how nervous you were, and it's just the most fun thing you've ever done.
And still is.
Still is, yeah. But I don't think we ever felt ready, but we'd been a band that was writing for over a year, maybe a year and a half. We were like, we should probably do a gig, just get it out the way.
Yeah.
So.
And how do you feel now? Do you still get nerves prior to?
It depends. I've done a lot of gigs since then, a lot. So
50, 100?
Oh, well over 100. Yeah. I've got a list somewhere. I don't really get nervous anymore. If it's like a small gig, just like a normal gig somewhere, I don't really get nervous, and if we're gigging a lot, it doesn't bother me. If we haven't gigged in a while and it's our first one, the first gig after lockdown, I felt like I was going to be sick because it had been a year and a half, and I was terrified, even though we'd done loads of stuff before that. It just felt alien. I still get really nervous if it's a big gig.
And in terms of what sort of numbers are we talking about for a big gig now?
Like over a couple of hundreds. I was very nervous. The last gig we played where I was really nervous, we played with Amel and the Sniffers in the O2 Academy in the big room upstairs last year, and that is the most people we've ever played to, and the room was like full, right to the back, and on the balcony it was full.
And did that feel multiples of better when you were doing it?
It was the most fun I've ever had. It's weird, it kind of felt different. Because with big rooms like that, you're quite separated from the audience, and we're used to doing like sweaty punk gigs in a tiny room, which are also so much fun. And you can kind of like interact with the audience a bit. But this one, we were so far away from them that it just felt like a totally different experience.
Good evening, Wembley.
That's what it was like.
Kendal Calling then, what sort of numbers were?
That year, when we first met at the station, that was our first time playing there, and we were in a tent right at the back of the festival.
So small stuff.
It was like, can't have been any more than 15 people. But it was still great, and there was someone watching us there who's been to see us like hundreds of times since then. And then we played again this year on a different stage, and there was way more people, so it was great. Good. Okay. You've touched on this, but at what point do you start making money out of what you do? Has that started, or? Yeah, it takes a while. I mean, we're like 6 years in, 5 years in, so we do now, but it's not enough to live off by any means. But you definitely lose money for a good few years, because people, you don't really get paid for gigs when you first start in. I don't know, maybe it's different now, but we didn't get paid for a long time. And then you do start getting paid, and it's like 50 quid, but there's 4 of you in the band, so it's like 12.50. It doesn't really go very far.
And the diesel cost 20 of it.
But we have, we just made like a band bank account, and we don't take any of the money for ourselves. Everything that we make goes back into the band. The best way to make money as a band is by selling merch. It's kind of the only way when you're a small band. So you have to pay. Well, the issue with that is you have to have the money in the first place to buy the merch. But then you can sell that, and that's how we make most of our money, is by selling t-shirts.
Interestingly, I did a couple of sessions with you. The first sort of street pick session. Fairly soon after COVID, I did one with a guy and his wife, and his job is going all over Europe selling merch. He's the merch guy. So, so it was interesting. And I'd never sort of come across that side of things. Right, so question number 9. How do you all arrive at gigs? So I'm guessing it's not a stretch limo.
Oh, no chance. Depends where it is. If it's in Liverpool, just get the bus, which is like the least glamorous entrance ever.
Very Beatles, that, isn't it? Really?
Get the bus there. Esme has recently gotten a car, which has been a big help. So we can actually go in a vehicle. But normally it's just buses or taxis, train.
And the gear?
We don't always have to take everything. Like if it's a support slot, we can just take our instruments, which is fine. If it's a headline gig, we have to take all the amps and the drum kit and stuff, which is a nightmare. So that's an expensive taxi, or the car jammed in like this. Last time we travelled for a gig, we were all like, the car was full of stuff, I was sat like this,
Yeah.
like drums under my feet, and like my bass was like, I was like in the car. Yeah.
On that, going to gigs, when I was about 5, maybe 10, there was a lad lived across the road who was a musician, and he's since become a really successful record producer. Worked with somebody Welsh out of the Shadows, and big noise. But I thought he was a drummer as a boy. He was just a boy in, early teens he would be, because a Hillman Imp would come up. Now, I don't know if you know a Hillman Imp, but it's about the size of a mini, tiny car.
Yeah.
And I would look out the bedroom window, and there'd be a big bass drum lifted out the car, and I thought it was his, but it wasn't. The driver was bringing somebody with the drums. They had to take the drum out so this lad could get in the back seat, and then put so pretty similar.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the European tour then, and again it's about the mechanics. So you played locally, but then you jumped into a van and went to Germany.
We did.
So that I'm interested in whose idea was that, and were you in the jacaranda after 4 pints or something like that? Let's do a European tour.
We'd wanted to do something like that for ages, but it wasn't actually our tour. It was a band called Bruise Control, and they just released their debut album.
Yeah.
Great album. And they planned this UK tour and European tour, and they asked us to go with them for both of them, which was amazing because we didn't have to do anything. All we had to do was get in the van, play the shows. So all the stressful bits of organising it all, they sorted that bit out. So
Well, you've just blown my next questions out, because part of it was the vehicle. How do you source the vehicle? I'll tell you what I was going to, and then arranging gigs and hotels and things. Just the minutiae, but you just turned up and.
Well, it was still a bit like, they're like a punk band as well, so it was very DIY in a sense. We hired a driver.
Yeah.
Who came with the van. And he just drove us round, and most of the time we were sleeping on people's floors. It wasn't like hotels and stuff, because that's too expensive. It was maybe the promoter who was putting the gig on would say we could sleep at their house.
Right.
And then I think maybe once, or maybe it was just once actually, we got a hostel. So it's not very glamorous still, even though it was amazing. Yeah,
I like that thing about, we just slept on people's floors, but whose floor did you sleep on, and what was the arrangement?
This is the thing about the punk scene, and this is why it's so good, is because everyone is so happy to help each other.
Yeah.
And they're like, of course you can sleep. Strangers that I've never met, of course 10 people can sleep in my house. Why would that be weird?
10 punks.
Yeah. And they were like making food for us and everything.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice.
So it sounds like a great vibe too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was one particular moment I saw on your Instagram, and I thought it was a really blonde moment where there was a problem with the van, and it's the transmission, and it was like you said, or the ashtrays full or something.
Esme is the funniest person ever. Yeah, the van did break down.
Yeah.
We were about 20 minutes from Berlin, and it just stopped working. So we were just stood at the side of the road. We ended up getting back in it and driving very slowly.
Yeah.
Made it to the gig. Someone came to look at the van, and they were like, "This van's broken," and they towed it. So we were stuck in Berlin without a van for like 24 hours,
right.
Which there's worse places to be stuck.
Absolutely.
It was fine. Yeah.
But it's the transmission. I was just thinking, do you know what the transmission actually does? It's quite important, really. So it was set, more or less handed to you on a plate, the tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. And what's the daily routine when you're on tour?
I don't even know how to describe. It's very different from normal life. Like for example, I hate naps. I just don't like sleeping in the day. All I did in the van was sleep, because you had to get up at like 6 a.m. to drive to the next place,
Yeah.
especially if you were going like really far. So you'd just be in the van for pretty much the whole day, and it would say it would take 4 hours to get there, and it wouldn't. It would take like 7 hours.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much spending the whole time just sleeping, waking up, eating food, sleeping again, and then you get to the place. You've got an hour to walk around and see something. Then you're at the venue, sound checking, gigging, go for a drink after,
Yeah.
sleep for a few hours, get up, do it again. So it's just kind of non-stop. You don't really get any time to like explore or see much, just because it's so there and then.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
So that sounds like it would be fun for a fortnight.
Yeah.
But if you were doing a 6-month tour.
Oh, it would definitely get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And again, what size audiences are we playing to on that tour?
Do you know what? I thought we'd be playing to no one because we'd never been there. Didn't think we had any fans. And some of the rooms were full. Like, I think the first few gigs there was like at least 50 people there, which was crazy because we've never been to Germany before.
And this is Piss Kitty.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And were they coming to see Piss Kitty, or were they coming to see some punk band?
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of people just were like, "Oh, let's go to a gig tonight."
Yeah.
It seems to be more like that there than it is here. People will just be like, "Oh, there's a gig. That sounds fun. I'll go to that," even though they don't know who either of the bands were that were playing. I think, I mean, as far as I know, we didn't have anyone that knew who we were. I'm not sure if the touring band Bruise Control, like, they might have had a few fans already that went to see them, but it was pretty much like mostly just brand new people who just came to a gig and then left with t-shirts, which was great.
Excellent. Yeah. So again, the mechanics, how many t-shirts would you take to a gig?
We normally just take, I don't know, maybe about 20 just in case, and a few sizes and colours.
Yeah.
We'll take everything we've got if it's a big gig, but then if it's not a massive one, we'll just take a few.
Yeah.
We sold a lot of t-shirts when we were away. I can't remember the number, but a lot more than we thought we would.
Yeah, good. The guy I mentioned that does the merchant said some of the problem is that when he goes away, there isn't stuff to sell. You know, it can be a real major sort of contribution to the finances of the tour. Or it could be if there was stuff to sell and there isn't. So, but he also said that sometimes they can get stuff made literally within 24 hours. You know, so, so we've covered the daily routine and the audiences. Was the whole thing like you anticipated it would be?
I think it was better than I anticipated it to be. I mean, I'd never done it before, and I knew it was going to be amazing, but it was so much more.
Yeah.
It's just the best thing ever, and the day you get home, there's nothing like, you know, it's like post-holiday blues
Crashing
times
down.
100. Yeah. I was miserable for days after we got home. It was just like, oh, it's so different now. I mean, it was nice being able to walk around, you know, barefoot. If that makes sense, because
not really. You've been making sense.
I've just been wearing my shoes for like the whole time we were there.
Right.
And we were just like in other people's houses, and I don't know.
Okay, so the big thing was being able to take your shoes off.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing.
Okay, yeah, right. How did it work financially then? So did you come away with anything? Did you break even? Was it hideous?
Well, as I said before, we have a band account, so we did have a bit of money in there already.
You did before you went?
Yeah, but because we sold t-shirts, we actually ended up like covering food and stuff, and because the band who'd organised the tour and had organised places for us to stay, they kind of negotiated into us getting a meal as well. So it was just like little bits of food we had to get. So
Is that one meal?
One meal? No, one meal in the evening, like
Right,
a dinner before the gig.
Yeah.
Which is the most expensive meal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, I didn't really check because.
But so it would be realistic to do it again if
Yeah.
things came, you know.
Yeah,
if,
definitely.
If the ducks got into line and.
But we didn't do it with the intention or the expectation of making any money. We kind of thought that we might lose money on it. Like we had to set a rate of, you know, we'll get for the gig, it's like $250 for 2 bands, and that's for both of us. And then also that is somewhere to stay and a meal, and that just covered like the cost of the van and the driver for the day. And the only way we were really making money was off merch, because everything we were getting paid for actually playing was just covering the travel and somewhere to stay.
Well, nice to do something that was that brilliant.
Yeah.
And not have to pay a fortune or lose a fortune on that, which is good. Yeah. How many gigs did you do when you were away?
So we were supposed to be out there for 2 weeks. I think there was 14. No, I think there might have been 15 gigs planned.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we had to come home early, so we only ended up doing 6 of them. So it was a lot shorter than we planned. Yeah.
What fun.
Very fun.
We're coming to the end now, so it's been lovely. Looking to the future, what next? What future plans?
Well, it's time to record our debut album. Yeah, I've been working on that for a while. So next year we're gonna start recording it and get that out, and then hopefully tour from that. So that's what we're focusing on at the moment.
Well, that's nice, because that leads into the sort of mechanics of that. So, right, done the gigging, done the European tour.
Yeah.
Let's make an album now.
Yeah.
So, how does it work? How does it fit together?
What do you mean?
In terms of the process, so you come up with your ideas, build the songs up, but then who do you take it to, or do you record it yourself, or? We've written a lot of new songs over that's kind of what we've been doing the past few months, and I went to a studio the other day, so we've got somewhere we know we want to go and record there. We've done it ourselves in the past years ago, and we've also done it at like loads of different studios, but we wanted to go somewhere and just do the whole thing so it all sounds like cohesive and professional. We were very lucky because we won funding from PRS to make the album, so they've given us some money to go towards that to help with the costs of recording, because it's very expensive. So we wouldn't be able to do it that way if we didn't have that money. We'd have to, it would take us years to do it, or we'd have to just do it ourselves, and it wouldn't sound as good. So luckily we've got that money, which means that we can actually do it properly. Right, nice. So when you say you won, does that suggest that it was a competition, or you applied for it, or
it's
how did it
an
work?
application, so we'd been applying for it for years, and they do it like twice a year. I think it was called Momentum funding. So if you're an artist or a band, you can apply, and the application it's pretty intense. It's like a lot, and you have to give like numbers and figures and exactly how you would spend the money. So it's not like something you have to like put effort into doing it. And we've been applying for years and just never expected anything to happen. And then we applied again September last year.
Good.
And we got an email in March and thought it was spam at first. We were like, spam.
Some fella in Nigeria offering.
I know. Turns out it was real. So yeah, I mean we have to. Yeah, that's what we're doing with making the album.
So will you get a producer, an external producer to do it?
We're just planning all that at the moment. So we know what studio that we're going to go to, and we've kind of got like a rough timeline of when we want to get in there. But we're meeting with an engineer in a few weeks to see if we want to work with him. Right. Yeah, so we're working on that.
Exciting, yeah.
It is exciting, yeah.
Just this thing about Liverpool being a sort of just full of artists.
Yeah.
I was taking photographs down on the waterfront and sat down. There was a couple of guys with roller skates on, so I sat down for a natter. One of them was a film director and the other was a record producer who knew, who'd produced somebody I'd photographed in Bold Street. You know, so it's just one of those totally circular.
Liverpool for
That's
you.
Liverpool for you, which takes us nicely into the last question, which I ask everybody in this series. So, is there anything about the city of Liverpool or the people who live here that's had an impact on your music or your creativity?
Yeah, I think just being from here has, because it is quite an inspiring place to live and be from. I mean, our drummer's obsessed with the Beatles, so there's that. I don't know if there's any like one particular thing I could say that has, but you know, most of my friends, most people I know are like artists or musicians, and I think just being around people like that is inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that strikes me, is that pretty much everybody I photograph is an artist in some shape or form, which is not a surprise, because in a way I single people out who are probably going to be artists. But odd times when I go for a character photograph with somebody who's not arty looking, they are.
Yeah.
They're a writer or something. So just everywhere you turn, there's artists. There's one guy who walks up and down Bold Street occasionally. He apologised to me for not being a poet, because he'd got the corduroy jacket on, he'd got a seaman's hat on, whatever. He just looked completely like a poet. And what he said was that he regularly gets stopped because people think he's an artist, and so he apologises in advance.
Really?
Yeah, so that's Liverpool.
Funny. Yeah.
Right, that's it then. So it's been an absolute joy to photograph you twice. I'll put some pictures from the photo shoots after this as the film winds up. Good luck with everything you do, and thanks very much for doing this. It's been lovely.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.